All right, so today we're going back in time, back to the early 1900s. We're diving into this piece, and it's all about knowledge. But, and this is a big but, there's a twist.
Oh, a twist. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so this author we're looking at, they were writing over a century ago, right? And they were convinced that society at the time had totally lost its way, completely lost. And it was all about, well, how do I put it? The very essence of knowledge.
It's a timeless dilemma, isn't it? Even back then. Trying to grasp what knowledge even I ask.
Exactly. And get this, the author found their inspiration in, well, a pretty unexpected place.
Don't tell me. Ancient Greece. The Oracle of Delphi.
Nope, even older.
Yeah.
This author, they were all about that medieval life.
Medieval. Seriously, knights and castles and knowledge. I'm not seeing the connection.
I know, right? You wouldn't think it.
Yeah.
But this author, they were convinced that the medieval model of knowledge, the whole thing about faith and divine order, they thought it had something that the modern world, their world, was missing. Big time.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. What was it, this missing ingredient? What did they think we'd lost?
Well, they start off by saying that the modern view of knowledge, and remember, this is the early 1900s they're talking about, felt like, and I quote, a thing of shreds and patches.
Shreds and patches. Sounds a bit chaotic.
Exactly. It's like it was all fragmented, disconnected. Does that resonate with you at all?
You know, it does. I mean, think about it. It's like we're constantly bombarded with information from every direction these days. It's overwhelming. We're drowning in specialized fields, data, facts, figures. But it's not always clear how it all fits together, is it?
It's like having all the pieces of a puzzle but no picture to guide you.
Exactly. And you end up with a jumbled mess. You lose sight of the bigger picture.
And that's exactly what this author was getting at. They felt like the modern world was so focused on accumulating these individual bits of knowledge, these shreds and patches, that they'd lost sight of the whole tapestry.
They were missing the forest for the trees.
Yes. And to illustrate this point, the author contrasts this modern view with the medieval perspective. And get this, they use Renaissance art to make their case. Specifically, they point to Simone Memmi's frescoes, which, if you've ever seen them,
breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking.
They depict knowledge as this unified, almost spiritual force flowing down from heaven.
Those frescoes really capture that sense of awe and wonder that surrounded knowledge in that era. Knowledge as a gift, something sacred bestowed upon worthy minds.
It really does make you look at learning in a whole new light, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And that idea right there, the idea of knowledge as a gift, is something we receive rather than just grab for ourselves. That's at the heart of this author's whole argument.
It's so interesting, though, because they keep using the word Catholic to describe this medieval view. And I have to admit, I stumbled over that a bit.
Oh, yes. It's one of those words that has definitely evolved over time. But don't worry, the author wasn't making a religious statement here. They were using Catholic in its original sense. Universal, all-encompassing.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So it's about seeing all knowledge as interconnected, part of one big unified whole.
Precisely. And that means breaking down those barriers we often build between different fields of study. No artificial separation between, say, art and science. In this model, it's all part of the same magnificent tapestry.
Okay, I love that image. The tapestry, it's like everything is connected, but on a whole other level.
Exactly. And at the very heart of this interconnectedness, this unified view of knowledge, lies what the author calls the teaching power of the Spirit.
Okay, the teaching power of the Spirit. Now, I have to admit, that sounds a tad mystical to my modern ears. Can you help me unpack that one?
Of course. Imagine it like this. There's this underlying current of truth that runs through everything, right? And what the author is suggesting is that all true knowledge, whether it's the laws of physics or the beauty of a symphony, it originates from a source beyond just our human intellect.
So it's not that we're just making stuff up as we go along. It's more like we're discovering these truths that are already out there, just waiting to be revealed.
Exactly. It's about being receptive to this teaching power, almost like tuning into a frequency that's always been transmitting.
Okay, I'll be honest, that's a pretty wild concept to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
But let's say, just for a moment, we entertain this idea. What would be the benefit? Why would viewing knowledge this way matter to someone today? I mean, really matter.
Well, for one thing, imagine approaching everything you learn with this sense of awe, of wonder. Like you're uncovering a hidden truth that's always been there just waiting for you. I don't know about you, but that would certainly change my relationship with knowledge.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Instead of just cramming my head full of facts, it's more like seeking out these deeper truths.
Exactly. And the author, they believe this had a huge impact, not just on individual learning, but on society as a whole.
So you're saying this medieval model wasn't just about personal enlightenment. This was about creating a better world.
Absolutely. In their view, this whole understanding of knowledge, it was key to developing strong, virtuous citizens. That's how important they thought it was.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little skeptical. Help me connect the dots here. How does seeing knowledge as like a gift, a divine download, lead to better citizens?
Well, let's think about it. If knowledge is bestowed, a gift, not just something you earn with brain power, it cultivates humility, don't you think? A sense of responsibility.
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's not about owning knowledge. It's more like you're entrusted with it. Like you have to be a good steward of something precious.
Precisely. And keep in mind, this author was writing at a time of immense change. New technologies, social upheavals, a lot of uncertainty in the air. They saw this medieval model as a kind of anchor, something to provide stability, meaning amidst all the chaos.
Right, like hold on to something bigger than yourself, something enduring, because everything else feels like it's shifting beneath your feet. And it makes you think, right? About how easy it is to get swept up in the latest trends or overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of information we're bombarded with these days.
Absolutely. Filtering the noise, finding the signal, that's the challenge. And this author would argue that this medieval model, with its focus on these enduring truths, it offers some guidance.
So it's not about rejecting progress, new ideas. It's more about approaching them with like a sense of grounding, a sense of purpose, recognizing that we're part of this larger continuum of knowledge that stretches way back.
Exactly. You're not just this isolated brain in a jar trying to figure it all out on your own. You're part of this grand lineage of knowledge seekers, building on the insights of those who came before.
And if knowledge is a gift, that means you have a responsibility, right? To share it, to use it, to make things better for everyone, not just hoard it for yourself.
That's such a crucial point. It really makes you question, how am I using what I know? Am I lifting others up? Or am I just focused on getting ahead myself?
It really is a different way of thinking about success, isn't it? Not just about individual achievement, but about like collective flourishing.
And that brings us to education. This author had some strong opinions about how we educate our young people.
Oh, I bet. They didn't exactly hold back in their critiques of the modern education system, did they?
Not at all. They were pretty scathing, actually. They thought modern education focused too much on rote memorization, practical skills, neglecting to cultivate a true love of learning in students.
They even compared some educational theories to feeding children sawdust instead of nourishing food. A bit harsh, maybe, but I get the point. There's a big difference between just cramming your head full of information and really digesting it, letting it become part of you.
That's exactly the distinction. They felt there was too much emphasis on prepping for the workforce, not enough on truly nourishing young minds, cultivating a lifelong love of learning for its own sake.
So we're back to that idea of knowledge as nourishment, but this time for the mind. They believed our education system wasn't giving students the intellectual sustenance they need to thrive.
Exactly. Like expecting someone to be physically healthy on a diet of junk food. You can't thrive on empty calories, whether it's our bodies or our minds. This author, they would argue that true education, it has to nourish the whole person.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What would our world look like if we approached education with that mindset? If we put curiosity, wonder, that sense of awe and responsibility towards knowledge front and center?
It really is a fascinating question to consider. And one of the things this author emphasized was the importance of reading.
Of course, right. Most authors are all about reading.
Sure, but they weren't just talking about passively consuming any old book that came along. They were really big on engaging with challenging texts, the kind that make you really think, question your assumptions.
So no more skimming headlines, huh? We got to really sink our teeth into something meaty.
Exactly. They truly believed that wrestling with those complex ideas, even when it's tough, that's what strengthens our mental muscles, so to speak.
Right, like anything else. You don't get stronger lifting the lightest weights at the gym.
Precisely. And just like we try to be careful about what food we put into our bodies, this author would say we should be just as discerning about what information we feed our minds.
It all goes back to that idea of knowledge as nourishment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a taste for quality, for substance, for those perspectives that challenge us, help us grow and understand more deeply.
And maybe even stepping outside of our comfort zones a bit, right? This author seemed to think that real knowledge, true knowledge, often comes when we grapple with those ideas that are unfamiliar, maybe even make us a little uncomfortable.
You got it. They firmly believed that understanding emerges from engaging with different perspectives, even those we might not initially agree with. When we have that friction, when we wrestle with different viewpoints, that's when our own understanding can really deepen and change for the better.
I know what you mean. It's so easy to get stuck in our own little bubbles, to just consume information that already aligns with what we already believe.
It's human nature, but it doesn't lead to a whole lot of growth, does it?
Not really. It's more like running in circles.
Right. This author would want you to be brave enough to venture outside of your comfort zone, intellectually speaking, of course, to actively look for perspectives that challenge your assumptions and make you think in new ways.
I like that. Being open to having your mind changed, not just clinging to your own opinions. But that can be kind of scary, to be honest. What if you realize you've been wrong about something?
It can be a little unsettling, no doubt, but it's also incredibly freeing. Because it means you're growing, you're evolving, becoming a more well-rounded and understanding person.
And isn't that what this journey of learning is all about? It's not just about racking up facts and figures. It's about allowing ourselves to be changed, transformed by what we learn.
Beautifully put. You know, it's really interesting to consider how this author might view our world today. I mean, think about it. We have access to more information than ever before, right at our fingertips.
It's almost too much to handle sometimes when you really think about it.
And that's where that sense of purpose comes in, that grounding in something bigger than ourselves, something the author saw in that medieval model we talked about. It's about approaching knowledge not just as consumers, but as seekers, as guardians of something really precious, something that endures.
So what you're saying is, instead of just letting all that information just wash over us, we have to be more intentional about what we choose to engage with. And what we do with that knowledge, how we use it.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond simply knowing things. It's about understanding, applying what we learn, using it to make a positive impact on the world around us.
I really love that this deep dive, it hasn't just given us interesting historical facts, but it's challenged us to think differently about knowledge itself, about how we learn, and our place in the grand scheme of things.
That's the power of a truly great piece of writing, isn't it? It stays with you, keeps those gears turning long after you've finished reading. And it inspires you.
It really does. It makes you wonder what amazing things we might discover if we approached every learning experience with that same curiosity, that same sense of wonder.
Now, wouldn't that be something?
It really would be. Well, that about wraps up this deep dive. To everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. Remember, keep your minds hungry, keep asking those questions, and never stop exploring this vast, incredible world of knowledge.